Did you know British drivers racked up nearly 10 million penalty points last year? That's not an exaggeration. That's actual DVLA data. 10 million. That's the equivalent of the population of London all caught speeding, metaphorically speaking. It's a 12% jump in just 1 year and more than triple what it was in 2021. In fact, in 2011, it was only about 1.5 million. So, either you've all turned into nutter mental speed demons and we've become a country of crazy boy racers overnight, or we've just stumbled onto the biggest stealth tax on movement this side of the congestion charge. So, is Britain getting more dangerous behind the wheel or on the roads, or are we witnessing the rise of a national cash machine powered by speed and number plates? Let's get into it right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
Right, so according to DVLA data obtained by Co-op Insurance, British motorists received 9.61 million penalty points in 2024. That was up from 8.55 million the year before. It's been climbing year on year since 2021. In 2021, it was 2.8 million. In 2022, it was 7.3 million. That was a big jump. Then it was 8.5 million in 2023, and then it was 9.6 million last year. So who's to say it's well over 10 million this year, probably. The most common offences, of course, speeding on public roads and motorways, and then driving uninsured. And those points, they stay on your license in some cases for up to 11 years. And if you rack up 12 points in 3 years, you're banned for at least 6 months. You can take a speed awareness course to mitigate that, but you can only do that once in 3 years. So listen, frankly, I really don't believe this is because we're all racing each other to work. In my view, it's basically because two things. The fact that the country's roads are becoming festooned with more speed cameras than there are Christmas lights in December, and because the speed limits are being reduced to silly, slow speeds and catching regular, ordinary drivers, people who've never driven fast in their lives, in fact. Suddenly, they've been turned into these supposedly unhinged, speeding social pariahs. The facts are that 96% of speeding offences are now caught by cameras. That's not policing, that's automation with attitude. I remember back in the day, you'd often get pulled over by a real policeman, a real cop, and you'd just be given a finger wagging and a stern talking to, and you'd be let off with a warning, basically. And you know what? It did kind of put the fear of God into you, at least for a while. It kind of worked. But now you hardly see any cops out there, let alone any fingers wagging. Let's break this down logically. First, more cameras. They are everywhere. Fixed, mobile, average speed cameras, community-funded cameras, tons of them. They never blink, they don't reason with you, they don't discuss with you, they don't argue with you, and they never have a bad day. They always just click. And since cameras can't distinguish between reckless speeding and accidental wandering slightly over the limit, both will get punished in the same way. Secondly, the 20 miles per hour speed limit reductions. These are crazy. What used to be a perfectly safe 30 is now 20 in many places where it doesn't need to be. And these are catching out most of these first-time offenders. People that have never had a speeding ticket in, say, 20, 30 years of driving, and suddenly they get caught out and made a criminal motorist at a paltry 23 miles per hour. Absolutely ridiculous. And then there's these speed awareness courses, you see. They are like a kind of get out of jail free card, so to speak, right? The problem is that millions of drivers have already kind of played that joker. They've used up their get out of jail free card, and then they can't do it again for another 3 years. So they end up collecting points instead of PowerPoint slides. Fourth in this situation is enforcement policy creep. What do I mean by that? It seems that many forces and councils have quietly tightened tolerance thresholds. So what used to be the typical 10% plus 2 miles per hour speed limit, or 10% plus 1 mile per hour, is now practically zero. The proof of this is that theoretically, you shouldn't be fined until you're doing 24 miles per hour in the 20 zone, but I now keep hearing of people that have been done at 23. That's just amazing, right? And physically, let's be honest, you can barely tell the difference between doing 20 miles per hour and 23 miles per hour. The mildest flex of your right foot in most modern cars, especially EVs, would see you instantly gain 3 to 5 miles per hour without even realizing. So to punish you for that, it really seems a little bit unfair. Anyway, doing 23 in a 20, you're a monster. Congratulations. Now let's look at the economics of enforcement. Here's where the numbers get spicy. You see, each fixed penalty notice is at least £100. Multiply that by 10 million fines, and you're looking at £1 billion of annual revenue. £1 billion. Officially, it goes into road safety funds, and officially, it's the most reliable income stream councils have outside of parking. And when you see a new 20 miles per hour sign appear, followed by a fresh camera a week later, it's hard not to feel like this is less about safety and more about steady cash flow. So here's the thing. Has this got anything to do with enforcement and safety at all? Or we're being trained not to think, not to judge, not to read the road, just to obey the signs and pay the fines? But hang on. Why don't they just call it what it is? It's a toll. It's a speed toll. And if you dare question it, you are anti-safety or anti-progress. But really, in that case, in order to sustain that revenue, they'd better reduce the point system significantly, because with the speed awareness course route being used up, you're going to end up with enough points to end up with lots and lots of banned drivers. And then that, of course, is going to impact your revenue stream. Okay, look, for the record, I am not saying that speed cameras are evil. They save lives, especially outside, say, schools and hospitals or on high roads, and most importantly, known dangerous hotspots, which, remember, this is what they originally used to use them for. But the scale of enforcement has gone way beyond common sense. It's one thing to target reckless drivers, but it's another to nail ordinary people doing 23 miles per hour in the 20 zone because they were turning the stereo down or something, and not watching their speedometer like a hawk. And that's the real problem here. We're not talking about maniacs. We're talking about normal, careful drivers getting penalized for existing within a flawed system, if you see what I mean. The policy feels disconnected from the lived reality of driving. Of course, you go a little above and below the limit. That's just normal driving. I mean, imagine how much focus you're putting into your actual speed rather than the driving process, taking in your surroundings, being road aware. In other words, I'm just going to say it. All this attention on being frantic about what speed you're doing makes you a worse and less attentive driver. Hey guys, while I've got your attention, make sure that you hit like, share, and subscribe, and support independent journalism channels like mine. You can do that at patreon.com, ko-fi.com, and of course right here on YouTube you can take out a voluntary paid subscription, or you can buy my books. I've got 3 books out at the moment: a full action thriller, The Ulez Files, a collection of short stories, The Quantum Races, and How to Do What I Do, How to Be an Automotive Content Creator. All of those books are on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. If you buy any of those books, I'll be grateful, but if you buy all 3, I'll enter you into a prize draw to win this keyring and badge. This is an exclusive set. There's only 20 of these. 2 of them have already gone out, so there's still 18 left of these to be won if you buy all 3 of these books and send me proof that you have them. Now back to the video. So this isn't just about speed limits anymore. It's about the slow erosion of driver trust. People no longer feel like participants in road safety. They feel like suspects. Driving used to represent freedom, but now it represents something of a risk assessment scenario on wheels. We've reached a point where people are saying things like, I don't drive much nowadays because I'm scared of losing my license. Oh, that's not road safety. That's road paranoia. I feel it too, because as a motoring journalist, a clean driving license is crucial to my livelihood. None of this will do any good, because somewhere along the line, we stopped celebrating mobility as empowerment and started demonizing it as a sin. It's no longer don't speed, it's just don't drive at all. And I've got to bring this up as well, because is this all just part of a bigger pattern that we've been watching unfold for years? You know what I'm talking about, the war on motorists. It started with low emission zones, congestion zones, parking permits, increased parking fees, and now ULEZ expansions and pay per mile, which is possibly coming, and now a death by 1,000 fines. Every year, there's a new restriction. Every year, there are more costs. Every time you get in your car, you're being made to feel like driving is an act of, a very expensive act of defiance. And the rhetoric has shifted, hasn't it? You're not a motorist anymore. You're a polluter, a contributor to climate change, a liability. All of this talk of vision zero and net zero, it's noble. Listen, I'm with it. But what about zero tolerance for nonsense? Because right now, we've got the highest motoring costs in Europe, the most complex licensing and tax systems, and roads that feel like they're actively trying to catch us out. It's exhausting, and people are starting to notice. Here's the irony. Over-enforcement doesn't make roads safer, it just makes people more cynical. If every driver thinks that the system is rigged against them, they start to bend the rules in subtler, riskier ways. They may slam brakes when they see a camera. They stare at the dashboard instead of looking ahead at the road. They become less aware of what's going on around them. And people will try to do things to save costs. Maybe they won't pay for the MOT. Maybe they won't pay for insurance. How many uninsured drivers are out there? And that's the paradox. The system designed to create safety ends up creating fear and criminality. We've got to find the balance again. Real road safety through education, design, and mutual respect of each other, pedestrians and road users out there. Not constant surveillance and punishment. Teach people to drive well, not to drive scared. Look, before I'm accused of going full conspiracy theorist, yes, enforcement does save lives. Speeding can kill. Just to be clear, I'm not condoning or encouraging reckless or inappropriate speeding in any way whatsoever. Be safe out there, people. But 23 miles per hour in a 30, what used to be a 30, is not speeding. 78 miles per hour on a motorway, it's not even that fast in a modern car with all its ADAS systems and its better stability and its enhanced braking systems. Sure, technology helps identify dangerous behavior, but you can't automate empathy and you can't find your way to safer roads. You could, however, find your way to emptier roads. There's a difference between keeping people safe and keeping people stuck at home. And right now, I think we've tilted too far towards the latter. So what do you think? Are Britain's roads genuinely safer because of all of these cameras and these speed limits? Or have we just built the world's most sophisticated guilt machine on wheels? One that turns ordinary decent drivers into data and the data into cash. Let me know below in the comments. I want your stories as well. Tell me about your near misses, your unfair tickets, the ridiculous limits that you found, because this conversation matters, and so therefore, like, share, subscribe it, share it with all your driving friends as well. And, let people know what is going on, where we could be going, and what that ultimately means. It means not using your car, unfortunately. In the meantime, we are going to use our cars, because it's all about cars, culture, and conversations here on Brown Car Guy. And I'll see you all in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.